The first build we're going to cover is on the Prismatic Warlock, and I apologize that it took a little longer to get this one out for you guys, but I wanted to unlock all the Prismatic Fragments before I posted this. That way I actually tested everything I could, and have this build set up in the best possible way that I think it can go. Now the first thing I want to point out is that the gameplay you are watching is from the 2005 power level story mission. My power level currently is at 1978, and we mow through these enemies until we go one-on-one with the beefy tormentor, of course. But I just wanted to show this short intro so you can see the power behind the build. And then the second thing I want to point out is in the second gameplay, where we're closer to at power level, I want you to keep an eye on our super bar for Song of Flame. We can get it back in less than 15 kills, which is pretty crazy for a super, especially a powerful one. So this Warlock build is essentially a grenade spam build at its core, but it does so much more with the right fragments and artifact mods. We have incredible survivability with a lot of damage reduction, and then great healing to counter the damage we do take. We incorporate both light and dark to make sure we're going transcendent as often as possible, and like I said, you will be popping your Song of Flame super like you're a kid in a candy store. Now when you are in the Song of Flame super, which of course is the super you're going to take, just alternate your grenade and melee ability. This will allow the most ignitions while you're in your super. Just make sure you Phoenix dive one time to the ground so you activate your solar mortar that lobs flaming projectiles as well. So you have 3 sources of flames going out at a single time, and all 3 of those abilities, your grenade, your melee, and your Hellion solar orb, is all 3 going to be scorching, so that's going to make ignitions happen much quicker for you. So for the class ability, of course we do want Phoenix Dive. The main reason for this is it's a quick cure, and it has a 55-second base cooldown compared to a minute and 22 for your rifts. This means you're going to get it back quicker with mods that play into it. For the melee ability, we do take Arcane Needle. We get 3 charges of this, just like on the Strand Warlock, and the main reason we take this is for that Unravel debuff. And as you can see in the gameplay, we always just throw one out here and there to make sure we have the Unravel debuff going, because that builds our darkness meter for Transcendence and just adds overall passive damage, which is great. For the grenade, we take Storm Grenade. It got a 20% damage buff, I believe, in PvE, so now it hits much harder, and we're actually going to allow this to jolt our enemies as well. And then also, speaking of your grenade, we do have the Transcendence Grenade as well. But you're slowing and freezing things that's inside of it with the stasis field. And then after a short duration, the black hole implodes, suppressing and dealing heavy damage to all nearby targets. But the reason I bring up our Transcendence Grenade as well is because that's going to apply a weaken debuff for us too. So our Arc Grenade is going to jolt targets for the jolt debuff, and our Transcendence Grenade is going to weaken targets for the void debuff. Now for your 2 aspects, the first one is the new one for the Solar Warlock, and we take Hellion. We just activate our Phoenix Dive, it gives us that solar buddy with us, and I do take this over Bleak Watcher. I did try Bleak Watcher with this build, and yes, you can drop a stasis turret where you're standing when you consume your grenade, your Storm Grenade, and it was nice. I'm not saying it's bad, but I enjoyed the overall damage that Hellion brings instead of the crowd control from stasis, because I'm already killing things and chucking grenades so fast anyways that I don't need things to be frozen and slowed down, even in 27 power level under. And then I liked the Scorch and the Ignitions that Hellions bring as well on beefier targets. And this will be a lot better one-on-one against something like a champion to melt them quicker in group content. And then also, when you do have Hellion going, it pairs well with our Song of Flame super to just add more outgoing damage when you're in that super, Scorch, and Ignitions. I urge you guys to give Hellion a try if you haven't yet. And then the next one we take is Feed the Void. Feed the Void on Prismatic Warlock is probably going to be a mainstay in a lot of builds because it is very strong. When we defeat anything with an ability, we get Devour. This gives us a huge chunk of health when we get a kill on every single kill, and it also gives us a big chunk of grenade energy, close to like 20% per kill. And I'm not joking when I say that you can throw storm grenades back to back to back between 1 and 2 second cooldown. I'm not joking with this build. Now the fragments is where we bring it all together. Like I said, for the first one we take Dominance. This allows the void grenades to weaken and the arc grenades to jolt. Just a good way to beef up both of our grenades. Next we take Protection. While surrounded by combatants, we're more resistant to incoming damage, and while Transcendent, this effect is increased. This should be around a 25% damage reduction at base, not including the increase we get when we're in Transcendent. And we do need damage reduction to stay alive in harder content. Next we take Hope. While you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly. We have this activated all the time because we are always amplified, we're always curing with our Phoenix Dive, we have Radiant from Orbs of Power, and we have Devour from the Aspect. Next we take Balance. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy, so that's our Grenade, That's light weapon damage, and that's also our solar buddies and our arc buddies. And then we also have rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. This is through our arcane needle and through the unraveling debuff, and then through our weapons as well, a strand weapon in our primary and in our heavy. We'll go over those in a minute. And then lastly, we take awakening. Rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage or super final blows generates an elemental pickup of the matching damage type. So throughout the gameplay, when you see all those ionic traces coming back or the fire sprites out on the field, that's from this particular fragment. And I think this fragment is very strong. So fire sprites give us about 15% grenade energy when we pick them up, and then ionic traces give about 15% ability energy to all of our abilities. For the stats on the build, aim for 100 resilience, that's just more damage reduction overall, 100 recovery to keep your phoenix dive up all the time, and 100 discipline if you can, for the fastest grenade regen. Next, let's talk about artifact mods and then our weapons. For the artifact mods, the more important ones are in the last column here. We have Shield Crush, but the bottom part is the more important one. While you are amplified or radiant, we are amplified 24/7 with this build. Your grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. And then in the bottom column, we take Transference, gain increased grenade and melee damage while Transcendence, and then weapon final blows while Transcendent refund light and dark energy after Transcendence ends. And then probably the most important mod here is Galvanic Armor. While you have an Arc or Prismatic subclass equipped, which we're on Prismatic, incoming damage from combatants is reduced while amplified. And then we also take Radiant Orbs. When we pick up that Orb of Power, we become Radiant for 10 seconds. I do like this one a lot this season because it means we don't have to run Defragment on Prismatic that makes powered melees make us Radiant, right? So we get to drop a Fragment because we run this, which is great. Speaking of our weapons, in your primary, I like to run the Call, the sidearm, it's the Rocket Sidearm. In my secondary, I was running No Hesitation, and then I just got the last LMG here to add to it. But again, all of these are because of this origin trait, Dealer's Choice. Final blows with this weapon grant a small amount of super energy. Equip multiple weapons from the Pale Heart increases this effect. So we run triple of them for the super gains and for the explosions and solar damage. Now for the mods on the build, on the helmet, Strand Siphon for double kills with Strand, and Ashes to Assets from both our grenades. Since they jolt and weaken, they should be killing things quite often. For our exotic, we are using Getaway Artist. Now the main reason we're using Getaway Artist here is when we consume our grenade, we activate Dynamic Duo here and get that Arc Soul. We also instantly become amplified, and it wouldn't be as important if it wasn't for Galvanic Armor. If you could stay amplified this season on Prismatic and have this mod on, you're gonna survive so much more than this season, trust me. So that's one of the main reasons. Next is the Arc Soul, the overpowered Arc Soul, which is great, and it can create ionic traces for us. But lastly is a perk that's not listed here, but when you consume this and that Arc Soul shoots things, it actually gives you grenade energy back in return. And you guys know how many bursts of the Arc Souls go out at a time, right? Like one conversion of your grenade that lasts 15 to 20 seconds long is gonna give you a ton of grenade energy back. And that stacks with our Devour grenade energy coming back, and then it also stacks with our Balance Fragment. Rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. So 3 different things just instantly feeding your grenade. We also take Firepower, so our grenades spawn an Orb of Power, Focusing Strike, and Bolstering Detonation. So we get grenade and class ability energy when we throw out our melee ability. And the basic rotation of the build is consume your grenade, Phoenix Dive to the ground, throw your melee. That way you have Unravel going, Arc Soul going, and Solar Soul going. So you're doing a ton of outgoing damage at once, which is dark and light, and then you can continue to play with your weapons. On the chest piece, just damage reduction across the board. On the boots, you can go 2 ways. You can either build into Orbs of Power, so when you pick up those Orbs of Power, you get ability energy like I have with Innervation, Invigoration, and Absolution. Or you can go with Weapon Surge mods, the Strand Weapon Surge mods, so you can get bonus weapon damage on your Strand weapons since you have 2 of them. And then on the class item, we take Bomber and Outreach, and then I have Reaper to spawn an extra Orb of Power after we Phoenix Dive. And of course, if you were taking armor charges to boost your weapon damage, you would slot in Time Dilation. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. I hope you've enjoyed the final shape so far. After the servers had kind of a little bit of a mess, it got quite better after that. And I will say the campaign was a blast to play, and the Pale Heart is a great destination. So I hope you guys are enjoying it, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.